Have you ever watched your teen just go blank in the middle of a sentence while you're talking to them? Like their eyes are open, but it feels like they're not quite there? Or how about you noticing your child acting like a totally different person, like a different personality, tone of voice, behavior, the whole 9 yards? Maybe you were thinking in those moments, oh my gosh, is this an absence seizure? Or could this be ADHD? Or gosh, could this be a psychotic episode? All of these things are worth checking out with your doctor for sure. But what if there is another possibility? One that most parents have never even heard of. So in this video, I'm going to answer that question. First of all, what this experience I just described is actually called and what it means. Second, just how common this phenomenon is based on a major researcher review. And third, why your teen does this in the first place. Stay until the end because I will also give you one simple step you can use as a parent the next time you see this happen. So, let's dive in. Hi, my name is Dr. Lee. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist working in pediatric health and the founder of Teen FND Academy, a coaching program that helps teens with FND and their parents get their life back. So let us start with the very first question. What is this thing actually called in these moments? Researchers luckily have a name for it. It is called dissociation. A team led by researcher Malcolm Campbell reviewed the dissociation research in FND or Functional Neurological Disorder in depth. Thank God. And they describe it as a loss of control or awareness over mental or physical processes that a person would normally be able to control or notice without effort. In plain language, it means part of your teen's mind or body stops checking in with the rest of them, even for a moment. That's really what dissociation means. And just really quick, dissociation can happen in the context of psychosis or psychotic episodes, like someone is hallucinating or out of touch of reality. And on the surface, it's pretty difficult to figure out which one is which, so let's talk more about dissociation. So researchers split dissociation into two categories, and both are pretty important over here. The first one is called psychoform dissociation. It sounds a bit weird, so bear with me. This covers mental experiences like gaps in memory, feeling disconnected from your own sense of self, even when you're aware of what's happening, or feeling like the world around you is not quite real. And I hear from many teens saying something like this: wow, it feels like things are not real. That is dissociation. The second one is called somatoform dissociation as opposed to psychoform dissociation. Okay, so this one, somatoform, covers the body, such as sudden numbness, loss of feeling in an arm or leg or whole body, or weakness, or a movement that happened without your teen choosing them, according to this researcher. So now back to the seizures, ADHD, or psychosis questions from a moment ago. You're not necessarily wrong to wonder about any of these things. I hear you. Absence seizures are a type of epilepsy and they absolutely deserve a proper medical workup. And attention difficulties are real too and worth looking into. So with psychosis or psychotic episodes, right? They are pretty serious things, so definitely worth checking it out. Now, dissociation in today's video is not here to replace any of those possibilities. It can sit alongside a seizure, along attention difficulty, or show up entirely on its own. That is the other possibility I mentioned at the start. And FND, let alone types of FND symptoms, is one most parents have simply never been told about. I have worked with so many families, like hundreds, if not thousands of families throughout my career, and none of the family, except I think one, and only because this one family was in the mental health field, but other than that, they have never ever been told what FND was. I mean, they didn't even know what it was until their child got diagnosis. So let me give you a super simple definition of FND or Functional Neurological Disorder. FND is a real diagnosis, despite some people still say it's a load of BS or another name, but it is a legitimate neurological disorder where the connection between the brain and the body is not quite working well. It's like you're in town with a bunch of cell towers. On the outside, you see the lines connecting, these towers, aka hardware. But the network is not communicating well, so your call keeps dropping even though your phone itself hardware and those cell towers, another hardware, are there and it's okay. FND is caused by a combination of biological, psychological, and social factors, so it's never ever just one thing causing or triggering the symptoms. Everybody's different. And there are so many different types of FND symptoms, including this dissociation. And I talked about this in another video, but with pediatric FND specifically, those symptoms tend to fluctuate, almost like a whack-a-mole symptom. So in plain language, your child's functional seizures is how it started, but now she is experiencing muscle twitches, chronic fatigue, now it's fainting, paralysis, memory loss, or dissociation, or all of the above and then some. It's just so unpredictable. And I have over, 1,000 videos educating all things FND on my channel. So start with a playlist of what you think would be beneficial for you first after watching this video. The Family Guy shares a handful of practical strategies to help you get out of this survival mode. And it shows why our structured approach gets such a strong result. Grab it from the description below. It is free. Now, let us talk about how common this phenomenon of dissociation actually is in FND, because the research here is pretty clear. So let's go. So in 2022, Campbell and his team reviewed, 75 separate studies on this topic as a systematic review. So together, those studies included close to 4,000 people with FND and then over 3,000 people without it. And what they found was pretty neat and significant. So people with FND showed both psychoform and somatoform dissociation at levels way far higher than people without FND. Okay, that makes sense. And this held true when FND samples were compared with healthy people, and it also held true when compared with people who had other neurological conditions. And not surprisingly, dissociation was connected to more severe types of FND symptoms overall and a lower quality of life. I mean, it totally makes sense. This is very disturbing symptoms, right, within FND. And just like anything else, I want to flag something here. The same way I flag it every single time adult research comes onto this channel, even though I am a pediatric health psychologist and all I talk about is kids with FND. The large majority of the 75 studies in Campbell's review were, guess what, conducted with adults, not teens or child. We're very behind and forgotten when it comes to research in pediatric FND. I know that, I am painfully aware. I have a really hard time finding plenty of research in this area. But the pattern is pretty consistent and strong enough that I believe it applies to what we see clinically in teens with FND. But I also want to be honest with you that this is an extension of adult data, so not really a proof gathered directly from pediatric samples. So I'm doing my best to put all these pieces together and then explain to you in a way that you would understand. So now you know what dissociation is, the psychoform and somatoform, right? In the researchers' own words, and you know how common it is in FND, which is a pretty common thing. The question left is why? Why does a teen's mind and body do this at all in a first place? Well, to answer this, we need to talk briefly about pathophysiology, which simply means how the body's systems misfire under certain situations and about the neural pathways involved in the body's built-in defense system. And I am all about science, so call me a geek, totally okay. So let's take a look. So essentially, every human nervous system, you and I, and everybody else comes with this automatic threat response. And this is how we survive, so we continue to live, which is built in through evolution. So this is nothing new. When the body senses a danger, whether it's real or perceived, it literally moves through a set order of response to survive. Number one, the body becomes super aroused and alert, like, oh my gosh, what's happening there? From there, it may move toward this active response, meaning fight or flight. But sometimes fighting is not an option, And sometimes running is not an option either. And this is where a researcher, Kuzlavska, I highly admire her, has done important work. So her 2015, a bit old, but bear with me, this paper describes what happens when active response and defense is not possible, which we know already. The body is shifting into this like still state, like a deer caught in headlight situation. So in this state, a person can remain upright, eyes open, and seemingly quote unquote present while their mind actually separates from their body, which lines up directly with the psychoform and somatoform categories of dissociation we just talked about. So Kuzlavska's research points to specific changes happening in the brain during this state, including this shutting down the areas in the brain responsible for keeping a person feeling kind of connected to their own body and their environment. So that part gets shut down. Now, just to be clear, once again, this research was not done only in teens with FND. Surprise, right? Okay. Even though actually Kuzlavska is pediatric FND specialist, it included people of many ages who had lived through so many different situations and different kinds of overwhelming circumstances and stress. So what I'm doing right now is, again, taking pieces of puzzle, taking this well-established pattern of nervous system regulation and connecting it to what I see clinically in teens with FND. And that connection is my own clinical framing using the evidence we have in science built from her research. And so again, this study is not directly talking about or claiming made in her paper. So here is a part based on these research studies that I have read and kind of put in two and two together logically and scientifically. And this is what I want you to hear this clearly. This state of dissociation is not weakness, okay? It is not like acting out, and it is definitely not your teen trying to get out of something. And I think you probably know that too. It is one of the oldest, most wired in patterns in brain science. And your teen's nervous system is definitely not broken. They're not broken, okay? It is actually doing something it was built to do, just at the wrong time and more often than it should. If you want to see how my full program of Teen FND Academy works and how it's helping families resolve FND for real, watch the video linked in the description box below. Here's a practical step, I promise you. In the moment your teen dissociates, so when you see your teen dissociating, the goal is not to snap them out of it with pressure or frustration. The goal is something called co-regulation. And this is something I teach families in my program, Teen FND Academy, all the time. So what is co-regulation? This literally means using a calm, steady voice, slower and lower than usual, and short and familiar words. So this sounds something like this. Hey, I'm here. You're safe. You're okay. And I'll be here when you're back. That's it. It's that simple. And it seems like you're not doing anything, but you're actually co-regulating. So the aim is to help your teen's nervous system borrow your calm state, almost like you're being their surrogate nervous system, and slowly find its way back to the present moment. So this is not the time to force your teen to snap out of the episode. Now, here is the bigger picture I want you to leave with, because on a short term, I know what you want to do. Like, oh my gosh, we need to get this out of the thing. I get it. Here's a kicker. A nervous system state is not a permanent life sentence either. This is where neuroplasticity comes in, which is a fancy name for the brain's ability to change and reorganize itself over time. So through consistent nervous system regulation practice, which I teach a lot in my program, a teen's nervous system can work toward a genuine, like legit nervous system reset. This is not about, again, forcing your teen to snap out of a state through willpower. In fact, if your child tries to quote unquote fight against the state, they will likely be stuck in that state for a hot minute, if not really long time. And it is about steady, repeated brain retraining practiced consistently, not constantly, but consistently over time, that helps the nervous system relearn what safety really feels like inside and outside. This is the foundation of real brain health, and it is entirely possible to help your teen train their brain and over time begin to rewire their brain away from this shutting down and toward regulation or reset. And this is exactly the kind of step-by-step nervous system work we work through inside Teen FND Academy. And if you want a clear, structured place to start, like this week, if not today, download the Teen FND Family Action Plan using the link in the description box. This is completely free. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.